Hi, dear friends and YouTube viewers. Welcome to Bidways English Learning channel. In my last video, I have explained some passages of on saying please in part 1. Now today I am going to complete remaining part of the topic on saying please through part 2. So let's start the essay on saying please. This essay is written by A.G. Gardiner. In part 1, we saw the chain of the people who impolite each other. Here, in part 2, the author wants to give some examples of good manners, politeness, kindness, and well civilized persons who creates healthy atmosphere in surroundings by good nature. Here, A.G. Gardiner then goes on a state that he wishes to hold up the example of friend of his whom he calls the polite conductor. He hastens to add that by calling a particular conductor polite, he doesn't mean to imply that all other conductors are impolite. In fact, he says, given the difficult nature of their jobs, most conductors go about their work in a very good natured manner. There are, of course, some exceptions. Here and there, one meets resentful conductors who look upon the passengers as their enemies, who have to be kept in the check through aggressions. But such specimens are rarer than they used to be, and the authors thinks that this is because the underground railway company, who also manages the bus service, imposes a certain standard of polite behavior in the men who work for them. This, he feels, is an important bit of social service that also benefits the passengers. Having made it clear that he has nothing against conductors in general, he tells us about his first interaction with the polite conductor. It happens one day when he boards the bus without realizing that he has left home without any money in his pockets. This being an experience common to most people, the author feels that the reader will know the feeling such a situation evokes. One feels either like a fool or a crook. One almost expects the conductor to look at him suspiciously and imply that this a common trick played by crook and be asked to get off the bus. Even if the conductor believes him and is kind, he is still left with the necessity of going back home for his wallet, wasting a lot of time and not being able to do what he had set out to do. Finding no coins at all in his pockets, he tells the conductor that he must go back home to bring some money. At this moment, the conductor tells him that he doesn't need to get off. Flourishing his bundle of tickets, he offers to give the author a ticket to wherever he may want to go. When the author told him the destination, then the conductor handed him the ticket. But when the author wanted to know where he should send money, the cheerful conductor replies that he was bound to meet the latter someday on some bus. Luckily for the author, he found a shilling in his pocket at last and managed to pay the fare. The joy, however, that such pleasantness on the part of the conductor gave him didn't diminish even a tiny bit. As routine, the author was traveling by bus. It happened that same conductor accidentally stepped on the author's toe, causing him much pain. The cheerful conductor was quick to apologize, saying that he had got those heavy boots on because his toes were often trod on. Now he himself was now stepping on people's toes. When he asked the author if he was really hurt and reassured him that it happened accidentally, by hiding his pain, the author said him that his pain was not too much to think it. Here, the author points out the cheerful conductors and his politeness and good behavior. From that incident onwards, the author begins to take note of the polite conductor and his action. The polite conductor seems to have a limitless supply of patience and goodwill towards his passengers. As a caring as a son to the old and elderly, and as a father to children, he goes out of his way to make passengers comfortable, be it by letting people on the top know that there are seats lower down when it rains, or cracking jokes with the young people to make the laugh. The polite conductor was not only caring the old and young, but also blinds. He used to set down a blind person up on the footpath and safely on his way. The polite conductor always carried such good temper and kindness. The author says that a journey with him taught one what natural courtesy and good manners were. The author then goes on to show us the benefit of such behavior. The polite conductor never had any difficulty in doing his work, just as rudeness begets rudeness. Likewise, a sunny disposition begets pleasantness in others. The poet John Keats had claimed that he always felt cheerful when the weather was sunny, and says, Gardiner, cheerful people come to us like the blessing of sunny weather. Consequently, the atmosphere inside this particular conductor's bus was always pleasant. His politeness, his readiness to accommodate, his pleasant manner of conducting himself resulted in making passenger happy, which in turn made his own work easy. That is why the author A.G. Gardiner points out that his politeness was not waste but a very good investment. Although sad that the polite conductor is no longer on his route, the author hopes that it means that he has carried his cheerfulness to another route. The world at large is a rather dull place, he says, and such cheerfulness needs to be spread as widely as possible. Moreover, Gardiner is not apologetic about writing a piece in praise of an unknown conductor. He feels that just as William Wordsworth, the English romantic poet, could learn lesson from the humble leech gatherer and the lonely moor, ordinary people too could learn from a man elevated his modest job through good nature. There is a general feeling that the World War has taken away from man's daily life. The use of civility that had made life sweeter earlier. The author asserts that those civilities must be restored to make life with one another easier. This cannot be done with the help of policemen or the law, which are necessary for creatures like man who are far away from perfect or uncivility. Whereas the law can only protect us from physical injury, the Lippmann's way of relating against rudeness with the physical violence too is ineffectual. The author suggests that if rudeness were to be replied to with excessive politeness, sweet revenge might be had while retaining one's moral superiority. He calls it the victory over oneself, the only victory that matters to end the peace. He recounts the story of the witty Lord Chesterfield for the edification of the Lippmann. There was a time when the streets of the city were too muddy, and the only way of keeping one's shoes clean was by walking as close as possible to the wall, where a narrow strip of ground was a little higher than the rest of the road. Here, Chesterfield came face to face with a rude fellow who refused to step into the mud to allow Chesterfield to pass. "I never give away to scoundrel," is what he said. Immediately, Chesterfield stepped into the mud with Bo, saying, "I always do." Friends, here our author A.G. Gardiner hopes that the liftman will understand that this revenge was much better than throwing the passenger out of the lift. Dear viewers and my subject mates, here I have finished the topic on saying please. Finally, the writer A.G. Gardiner has given the moral value through this essay. The writer tries to say us learn to be as polite as possible, but also to accept impoliteness when it occurs as a part of life. Friend, here I have finished the second topic on saying please. If you like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching this video. Goodbye.